All right, so we're going to look at a case study of a water model done for an indigenous community. I originally did worked on this research uh, as part of my master's degree with Dr. Osgood. It was a collaborative effort from a bunch of multidisciplinary researchers. So the first and kind of foremost sort of person was Myron Niapatung, who was the community research coordinator. And like over the years since we've done this research, they've codified a bunch of, rules or guidelines as to how non-Indigenous researchers should interact with Indigenous communities. That stuff wasn't so well uh, laid out at the time of this research. Uh, but the the well, I'll introduce the next people, I guess, and then I'll come back to that point. So, Dr. Lalita Bardwaj, Dr. Laurie Bradford, our own Dr. Osgood, and Dr. Graham Strickert were, as well as Dr. Cheryl Waldner, were in a supervisory role. And I've listed myself as the students, but there were many, this was a huge project, and there were many other students working on different aspects of it. Like some of them were doing like genomic testing in the of fish in the nearby lake and like stuff that didn't really intersect with my work. But there was a it was a big project with many facets, so I wasn't the only student. But this work I'm presenting this afternoon was mainly my work. So doctors Bardwaj and Bradford, and to a somewhat lesser extent Waldner, uh, have over many years sort of cultivated a relationship with this community. And uh, Myron was the key contact point and a co-author on the research. And but this wouldn't have been possible without years of relationship building. So I want to credit those collaborators for that. So Yellow Quill First Nation, this sort of situates it on the continent. Uh, this is so Saskatoon's up here somewhere. These are the treaty boundaries rather than the colonial political boundaries, but it's it's a couple hours drive from Saskatoon. Uh, so a little bit about them. They're a Saulteaux nation, signatory to Treaty 4. Uh, there are about 2,000 registered. Well, this was at the time the research was done, which was like 2017. So I suspect there are more people now, but there are about 2,000 registered and 800 on reserve uh, population near Kelvington and Rose Valley. It's in what is called the Lake Winnipegosis watershed. There's a contentious relationship between the indigenous community and the Nut Lake Watershed Association, which is uh, an agricultural group composed mainly of farmers within the surrounding area. Uh, it is in the prairie water pothole till classification, so we'll come back to that idea a little bit later. Uh, Historically, there have been annual spring floods since 2011. Elders report frequent flooding since the 1970s in spring. Uh, Floods damage roads and culverts. Water seeps into basements in the village and across intersections. Members stockpile sump pumps. Floodwaters recede slowly. Nut Lake has a 158.6 day residence time, floodgates located off reserve are controlled by the Nut Lake Watershed Authority with no input from Yellow Quill First Nation. Uh, in June 2017, the chief's wife and 4 children were involved in a van rollover on muddy roads that ended up in 1.5 meters of water. There were deaths, and the family was on its way to school. Similar incidents occurred in Brew with 5 deaths when an SUV rolled into a slough beside the road. So this sort of brings home the importance of water management within the region. So this diagram represents sort of the process. So throughout the process, we were consulting with the community and showing them our work and getting feedback. Uh, so there's something called the WDPM, which I'll say some more about later. And then we took its outputs into a GIS model along with LiDAR data that was part of this project was getting a huge LiDAR data set run for the community and surrounding area. And then the ABM is what I'm going to talk mainly about today, and that was my work. So that information went into there, and community data informed all of these points. We also included some health data in the ABM, and that led to our results. So I'll talk about the model itself. It's a hybrid model using a GIS space in AnyLogic, and it combines all three of the modeling paradigms supported by AnyLogic: agent-based system dynamics and discrete event simulation. There are multiple networks. Agents use inheritance, which is a computer science topic I'll say a bit more about. Uh, so some of the agents were the person, as is often the case in the models we do. Uh, there was a place agent, and this was a generic place, and then there were kinds of places for various buildings in the community. And then there was a water source and a water transport, a health condition to allow for generalized health conditions, a pond agent, and I'll say a bit more about that later. And the storyteller came in as after community feedback, and I'll say some more about that in a moment as well. So the person agent can basically be healthy or unhealthy. That's pretty straightforward. And then this huge one here is their commute about the community for various reasons, uh, described as a state chart. Some other facets of the person. So we had a series of parameters, and there was a health conditions population within the person. So we could give them disease, and we had reified a few conditions in the model, and also access to the storyteller feature, which again I'll get to. So there's something called inheritance in computer science, and this may not be foremost on your mind if you're not from a computer science background. But in the simplest terms, it allows you to create relationships between things where A is a kind of X, for example. So this was the generic place agent that had locations and people inside and some stuff about its water use and whether it's clean or contaminated. And these features were inherited, and this shows where you can do this in the AnyLogic interface. Uh, and I can say more about that if there's interest. So this is an example of nursing station or clinic, and all these sort of grayed out bits are inherited from the generic place. And then, but it has other things specific to the clinic that the other kinds of places like homes don't have. And this shows the water source agent. So this represents either a treatment plant or a reservoir. Uh, so in the case of the community has a reservoir pumping station and a treatment plant. So in the case of the pumping station, there's no treatment capacity, but it still has a reservoir and distributes water to users. But the treatment plant actually treats water so it fills itself up at a certain rate. And then there's a water transport. This is a truck, and for those who spent their whole life in urban areas, this may seem a bit weird. But in a lot of smaller communities, both Indigenous and colonial in Canada, we deal with a situation where it's called truck to cistern. So there's a central water treatment plant, and a water truck periodically delivers drinking water to each building. And the building has a cistern where they store the clean water and use water from there. So the truck has some logic for determining who needs water, and it fills itself up at the reservoir and delivers it to various places in the community. This was the general health condition, so we wanted this to sort of represent any communicable disease or, condition like an injury. So it's got many parameters, and not all parts of these state charts are activated depending on the settings of the parameters. I can say more about that if there's interest, but I won't go into great detail right now. So the pond agent, there were many in the flooding model, the WDPM, there were many ponds of water at the highest flood stage. And this sort of ties into the fact that this is the prairie pothole region, which it tends to gather many small ponds of water as the water level rises. So these agents were just associated with each uh, pond of water, and they just sort of existed to tell other agents that crossed into that area that, oh, you're in a flood water pond now. This shows the storyteller agent, and this may be hard to see depending on your screen, but basically this came out of the importance of individual storytelling to the indigenous people, and it was commented on by several of the elders in one of the consultation uh, periods. But basically what this is one agent out of the model, and it tells you what's going on in that agent's life. So they're heading to work, arrived at work, leaving work, heading home, and so on. And then the colored uh ones, this is exposed to an infectious agent, but they didn't get sick. So then they keep going about their ordinary business, and they were exposed a couple more times, and finally, they were exposed and they actually contracted the waterborne illness. And then they eventually headed to the nursing station for treatment and left the nursing station and eventually recovered and went about their business again. And we've kind of got a generalized way of doing this that you could put in any model. It's not really user facing, but if you're familiar with a bit of programming, you could put it into one of your own models. All right, GIS aspect. So this shows the output of that. WDPM model, which was done by the hydrology department. And all this blue stuff is the little ponds of water that occur when the water level is high in this prairie pothole topography. And the red shaded areas are the Yellow Quill First Nation lands. Uh, this shows a close view of the center of the community. And here's the school and the reservoir pumping station, and there's a bunch of houses around, and here's here's the clinic and the band office and some other, administrative buildings. And these oblong shapes here in blue represent ponds where water accumulates during flood stage. And this is just another view. This is the DEM in green, which stands for Digital Elevation Model. So they scanned the surface of the ground with LiDAR to produce this highly uh, detailed elevation map of the region. And this is useful to the community for many things besides this model. So it was a good output of this overall project that that was, like I said, multifaceted. So for my model, I just took this that DEM went into the WDPM model, which is wetland DEM ponding model, it's called. That's what it stands for. And this was done by the hydrology department, and this is a very compute intensive model, and they've spent years developing it, but I didn't work with it directly. I just worked with the output, which is all these blue, as I showed earlier, ponds. I worked with a software package called QGIS. It's a free package and it's open source. It's multi-platform and Python scriptable. I would say if you have access to a commercial GIS package, that would be preferred, but I don't. So it's a fine option if you're on a tight budget. This is the publication that came out of this. So I will point out that Myron is a co-author on this. Uh, and that's the end of my slides. I can't remember. Did I say I was going to talk about a thing and then not talk about it? I'm not sure, but I'm uh, I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Great. Thanks, Wade. Maybe we'll stop the